What is good, everyone? Welcome back to the Exhaust Notes podcast. You thought we were going to disappear for a couple of months, but yet the whole crew is back. Myself, Nick Engvall, Raniel DiCardo, what? Rolo Sainz, what? Who am I even with today? And we got video, so welcome to seeing our faces. What's good, guys? How you been?
I was told that I was going to get yelled at for all of Ferrari's grievances, so that is why I am here today, like Marshawn Lynch.
No, I didn't want to yell at you. I just wanted to yell about Ferrari because they caused me pains this week. I mean, they cause everyone pains every week, but for some reason, I just feel bent out of shape about them.
This is why we have a podcast, for you to get these things out. Otherwise, we don't want you to take your aggression out at a postal service office. I don't know why. What's the opposite of abbreviate? Extended that? But who knows?
I mean, but Ferrari in recent years does cause these types of things, right? Like that's basically what we got to get to. So
yeah, I'm not even a Ferrari fan, and like this whole, I don't know what it was about this weekend, just sent me over the edge.
But before we get our dessert, let's get through the vegetables. So I'll just go ahead and do the preliminary race order just to tell people where we were with this beautiful Spanish race. Up first, we have Max Verstappen in his customary first place, then Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. Who predicted that? I remember somebody predicting that distinctly. Was it you, Engvall, or was it Raniel?
I don't know. I don't want to claim it if it wasn't me, but I definitely had. I think I had Lewis up there, but I don't think I had George up there too.
I thought somebody had both of the Mercedes. To all 5 of our listeners, please, somebody check the archive and let us know. But back to where we were. Number 3 is the aforementioned George Russell. 4th is the Mexican Red Bull Sergio Perez, followed by the Spanish Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. 6 is Lance Stroll, who, when he wants to be a racer, not a projectile, can be pretty decent. 7th is his teammate, Fernando Alonso, which probably feels the lowest he's been all year. Then 8 is ST Bestie, Esteban Ocon, followed by Guan Yu Zhou in 9, Pierre Gasly in 10, Charles Leclerc getting close to the points but not getting any points in 11th, Yuki Tsunoda in 12th, Oscar Piastri in 13th, Nick DeVries 14th, Nico Hulkenberg 15th, 16th is Alex Albon, 17th is Lando Norris, 18th is Kevin Magnussen, 19th is Terry Bottas himself, Valtteri Bottas, and then last, but certainly not least, Logan Private, a.k.a. Logan Sargent.
Private bullshit. No, I'm kidding.
Private bullshit.
Yeah. So where do we start?
Todd, Todd, what?
Let's start with the Ferrari thing. I mean, I feel like we've teased it.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
Right. So I don't know what caused me to like send me over the edge, but I was looking at, I think it was pre-race, like Leclerc's stats for the year, which have been essentially like, you know, DNF or barely in the points. And there was a discussion in the Discord kind of around that time about Ferrari. And I just kind of dawned on me, like, even last year, they were the second best car, right? Challenging Red Bull on their best day. I think Leclerc got like 3 wins last year. And in that span of time, they've gotten rid of Italian Harry Potter. They made a more fragile car that eats its tires worse somehow, and their pace has completely degraded. They've lost, I don't know how many key staff members. Like, they're the winningest team in all of motorsport. They have something like, I don't know, 15 or 16 drivers and constructors championships, like an insane amount. The next closest, I think, is McLaren, but whatever, they're garbage now. The Ferrari, like, we've talked about this before, but for like the NBA to be good, or like when the Knicks are good, it makes the NBA better, that kind of thing, or the Yankees in baseball. Right. Like, Ferrari needs to be. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, come up with a non-New York example. Otherwise, people are gonna think we just love.
Or the Giants in baseball. Sorry, asterisk. Or no, not asterisk. I didn't mean that, Nick.
I'm out of here.
Like, whatever. Like, the Dodgers, the Giants, whatever you want to say. Like, they need to be good to make the sport better. It needs to be like that thing that we've always wished for, is like the top 3 teams, Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, all being good and in some sort of a battle battling for those top 6 spots for Formula One to be entertaining. And even if Ferrari was like fighting Mercedes for the Formula 1.25 because Red Bull's just way too far out in front, like it would still be entertaining because there's like that top of the tier battle going on. We lost Rob. It pains me, and I'm not even a Ferrari fan. Like I said, I don't like them. They were my equivalent of like the Russian Red Wings for all you hockey fans. When the Red Wings were dominant in hockey, like they've always been that like Chamber of Fear style kind of empire like entity, and they have just completely fallen apart. Like I didn't think they could fall further from grace than they have from like 2019 when the fuel cheating scandal thing went on. But yeah, they seem to have, and I don't know if I'm overreacting to this, but it feels like they're going to be lucky to finish like 4th or 5th in the champ, like lucky to finish like 4th in the championship.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, they should have won last season, in my opinion. Like they had a competitive car, they had competitive drivers. They just botched so many races, which is why if you're in the Discord, you saw, was that yesterday or day before, that Drew posted that during the offseason, Ferrari was going after Christian Horner and trying to pull him away from Red Bull, which is interesting to hear about. I mean, I'm sure that like Christian Horner and Toto Wolff as like the kind of two faces of team management are people. They're probably getting offers left and right from all teams, but it is kind of odd with Ferrari because Ferrari tends to, they kind of tend to stick with their own in a lot of ways. But yeah, it's frustrating to as a fan of the sport. Like, I mean, it's hard to say it's not entertaining though, because like outside of Max being so dominant, this race was actually pretty entertaining, right? Like there was enough going on to make it entertaining, even if you knew Max was going to win from the get-go, essentially. But you just expect Ferrari to be up there at this point too, right? Like they've shown the glimpses of capability, and they just can't follow it up ever for some reason.
No, I mean, I think it goes back to what we were saying last year, where people didn't realize that that's the season Ferrari had in them. So with the expectations rising, their title hopes almost dwindled. There was a pretty much direct relationship in that regard. Or indirect. God, I'm going to fail 8th grade science again, so that'll be fun. But at the same time, do you guys feel this is more of an appropriate year from a Ferrari perspective? Just because the fact that, did they peak a year earlier than we anticipated? Because the other thing I will say is the aforementioned Italian Harry Potter, he's not the issue anymore because the Italian Argus Filch is not doing the job we thought he would, which was be a professional race car manager. And he seems almost a little too concerned in terms of being in the background. And it's something we were initially applauding him for, is just he's an adult, he's a professional, he's not going to stir any drama, but maybe this team thrives on some sort of drama. Or conversely, the drama is their own ineptitude and it doesn't matter who's in charge of it.
I think you might be onto it with that. I actually think that if you think about the way all three of us expected what we expected from the team last season, I think that they just all buckled under pressure. Like, because if you think about last year, yeah, there was a lot of, I mean, I would put the blame on the pit crew, so to speak, and the management and all of that. But like both Carlos and Charles made, their fair share of mistakes. And, it's like, if it wasn't one, it was the other every race last year, it seemed like. So,
yeah, and I guess the other thing I would stress is, to your point, Nick, nobody had a sterling clean record last year. You saw ineptitude from the management, you saw ineptitude from the pit, you saw it from the drivers, you saw it from the car. But if my new favorite exercise, which is the blame pie. Who would you say has the biggest chunk of the blame for this year? Because I don't think people expected them to regress the way that they have this year. And to your point, Todd, I still think they'll get fourth place on lock, just because I think that golf is already big enough that I don't see anybody from the rest of the midfield unless we get another surprise podium or, more importantly, a race winner. Because at this point, I think it may be the top four is set in stone in some order.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just looking at the gap too. They're 60 points above Alpine in fifth, but Alpine's been kind of on a stride lately. But going back to your original question, who's to blame this year? Man, that's hard. That's a really hard question. But I do agree that there's, or maybe kind of on the vein that Nick was saying, it's like we all expected better from them, and we last year, and we had like easy fingers to point on like race strategy or, you know, the pit crew, or what, like probably strategy was all encompassing there for the pit crew there. But it, like, and then the drivers, when they would screw up, like Charles had a couple of pretty big spectacular fails, and then like the car itself, right? They almost cooked Carlos Sainz at Spa last year. Like, there was easy things to point at, and this year it's just like everything's wrong. So it's hard to really point a finger. But like at the end of the day, it really all falls on, what did you call him? Austrian Argus Filch or something?
Yeah. I think I got poor Fred Vassar's nationality wrong. I think I just lumped him into Italian just because, to Nick's point, they always have an ability to retain talent from within, usually an Italian talent. Let's do this other exercise, because inevitably, as an American sports fan, I'm always conditioned to think, okay, if something is wrong, somebody has to leave. Last year, Harry Potter went bye-bye. Who's going to be the fall person this year? Because I don't know. I'm not going to say it's going to be Charles Leclerc, because they've invested so much in him. But do we hold more truth now to these rumors that Carlos Sainz may be looking more and more like the face of Audi if he's the sacrificial lamb?
Oh, no. I mean, I think if anything, Carlos is showing. I don't think his peaks are as high as Leclerc's are, but I think that he's showing that his valleys aren't as low, right? Or that there's more flatland in between. I don't know. That was a really bad analogy. But you know what I'm saying.
You're not a photographer, but you are a podcaster, so I will give you that. No, I mean, it's a question of ceilings and floors. And to your point, Charles Leclerc has one of the highest ceilings in the entire sport, but unfortunately, he also seems to have the lowest floors, and it's not something that has always been there. I think in the last couple of years, his floor is getting lower and lower, which is ironic considering the sport that we're in, where the floorboard is so critical to race wins.
Well, his floors aren't as low as Lance Stroll's. Let's not get crazy here.
I went on record as saying I think Lance Stroll may outpoint Charles Leclerc, and I know we have to save some of our hot takes, but what is going on with Charlie?
Well, I mean, but yeah, they're totally crushing his whatever potential that he may have. Also, shout out Iron Trev. I told you I'd get a dig about Stroll in the podcast.
And I raised him up. So
yeah, thanks for ruining my dig at Stroll.
Yeah,
I mean, he did finish sixth. You can't. It is tough to talk down on him at this point.
Yes,
for this race.
Do we need to go through his finishes this year, or his season so far?
Let me.
I think Rohit said it best, right? It's like when he chooses to not be a runaway bullet train, he can do whatever. Like, he's very good when he chooses to be. But I think that sometimes, or most of the time, he's just like out there running and gunning, and who knows what's going to happen.
Todd, what do you think is the point gap between Stroll and Leclerc in the current driver standings? Without looking.
Oh, God. Leclerc's had a pretty bad season, and Stroll's been in the top 10 several times. I would say, I don't know, 20 points, I'm going to say.
Leclerc is above Stroll by 7 points.
7 points. Wow, okay.
And based on what we want to talk about, just the cars, not the drivers, but the cars themselves, that Aston Martin seems to be the second best car on the grid this year. Or third best based on what you rate of Mercedes upgrades that finally came through in the clutch after a bunch of sandbagging. So either way, I kind of stand by my assessment that I would not be totally surprised if Stroll outscores Leclerc at this rate.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, that's totally feasible, and I wonder if it's going to be what part of the structure is going to let him down. Is it Leclerc? Like, there's only almost like three branches of government. There's like three branches of. Yeah. It's like the team, the car, the driver. What do you think is going to be the thing that lets him down?
I think at the end of the day, I still think the executive position in this analogy, which I'm attributing to the driver, I think Leclerc is in his own head right now, and I don't see anything getting him out of there unless he truly is that driver and gets a podium, if not a race win off of Max, because that's the only thing I could see him rectify whatever mental funk he's in. Because at this point, we're not armchair psychologists. Oh, no, we are armchair psychologists. We're not regular psychologists, but there is something fundamentally, dare I say, off about Leclerc. He just does not look the same driver he's been in previous years.
I mean, and I think you nailed it, though. It's, it'll take a win to get him out of that, in my opinion. Like, it's not like he's not going to be happy with third or fourth or a podium or whatever that is. And I think that's highly unlikely at this point this season, right? Like, it's going to it'd take, DNFs from Max and Checo and probably some other chaos in the middle of the race for Leclerc to end up on, with a win this year. And that's disappointing.
I completely agree. I'm glad you said Max DNF, because you'd have to have a Green Bull, Red Bull crash at the start of the race to have Ferrari to even have a chance.
That's true.
It does make me wonder, with Stroll, I don't think Stroll's going anywhere. We've talked about this at nauseum, so I don't need to get too deep into it. But it does make me wonder what someone like Leclerc or someone like Lando would do in one of those Aston Martins, because obviously those cars are a very close second. Maybe not very close. I shouldn't say that, because they're easily second, right? They're the most dominant car out there outside of the Red Bull this year. Who's to say maybe these Mercedes upgrades are going to continue to result in. And honestly, I want to talk about Lando, man. Qualifying third, it's so frustrating as a fan to see that excitement and then turn around and be like, oh, cool, you're in 20th and you're in the pits and you're just constant. It's just I don't know. It's just disheartening.
I kind of took it as obviously I was giddy like a school kid when I saw him in P3 on qualifying. But one, I guess I'll say first that him sticking his nose in there on whatever it was, turn 3, 4, something like that, he shouldn't have been there. He put his nose in a spot that he shouldn't have been. A little too ambitious. Maybe he got overexcited because he hasn't been anywhere close to there in a while. And he kind of ruined his own race. That wasn't on anybody but him. As much as I love Lando, I think that one was on him. But I feel and this kind of speaks to the overall qualifying that we saw, because we saw Haas on fire. Both of the Haas's were super quick. Zhou put up a super quick time. Albon, even Logan Sargent somehow cranked out a super fast time.
Piastri was in 10th.
Yeah, there was it's this. I don't know why I was thinking about this, but everybody's cars for the most part seem to be working really well. And it was on what track? The track they test on. And everyone says, it's kind of like a saying in the paddock, if your car works in Barcelona, it should work pretty much anywhere. So over one lap, they were all super quick, right? It was people just, the track just kept ramping up, and they were all posting faster and faster times. But then once you saw in the race, it kind of resettled for the most part back into the order it should have been. And, which, I mean, well, we could talk about the overall race. There was the most races that I can actually remember in a single, or most passes in a single race.
Yeah.
It was 106 passes during that race. And Nick, you said earlier that it was like entertaining. There was like, besides Max, like just like totally fucking off out front. But I felt it was like kind of boring. Like for as much action and passing, it just, and my point is that like it started super jumbled up in a bunch of different tire strategies, and all of that didn't seem to matter because it mostly kind of shifted back to where you'd kind of expect the grid to be based on the performances of the cars overall this year.
So you're saying you expected Lewis and George at second and third?
Okay, that's kind of outliers, but like we didn't really know the history of their upgrade, or that not the history, the performance of their upgrades for Monaco, because that's just not it's just such an outlier track. And I'm really curious to see if that's like true performance going forward, or if they really are closer. Because another thing that Trev posted in the Discord was the lap times from the race, and like the average lap time, Lewis was only like 0.3 off of Max's average lap time for the whole race, and he was like lifting a lot at the end apparently, which is crazy. That's like really close. If you can stick within 0.3, like over 50 laps or whatever, that would still be like, I don't know, 10 seconds or something, but that's based on the Mercedes to Red Bull gap. That's been about like 50 seconds or something this year. Not even close. So is Mercedes sandbagging more? No, the sandbagging. I laughed at that when Rose said that earlier. I don't think it was sandbagging. I think they're a team that went. Or actually, Ro, I want to know why you think they've been sandbagging.
No, I was making a flippant remark, right? Like that's what Mercedes has always been characterized that, oh, this isn't good, we're not going to do anything. And then lo and behold, Mercedes figures it out and they become the most professional team in the sense that they'll always get a podium result. They may not be the third best team, but they always make sure that they don't shoot themselves in the foot. And the more I watch Formula One, the more I realize that is probably the most rare skill a team has to have. That being said, to both of your points around Barcelona almost being the inverse of, I don't know why I said Morocco in my head, but Monaco, in the sense that, that's like bowling with having the bumper lanes on. Like there's a lot less room for error and almost everything seems to work for you in that particular track. So I don't think they are as effective as Barcelona makes them out to be, but I also don't think they're as ineffective as Monaco rendered them, because in an ideal world, I think you're going to be somewhere in the middle. And with the next race, I would not be surprised if one of them makes the podium, but I don't anticipate both of them having two podiums in the same race. And dare I say, this might be the pinnacle of Mercedes' year. I'm assuming none of them get a race winner. Oh, you still don't think that they're going to have any one-off race wins? No, not at all. Wow. Even if my hot take is Lewis is going to go a whole year without another win for the second straight year. But at this point, nothing George Russell does impresses me enough to say, yeah, you know what? He's due. He's going to get a race. And when he wins the next race, I'll eat my humble pie. But at this moment in time, George Russell has been a bit of a laughing stock this year in terms of the most important and most productive things he's done have nothing to do with the racing. It's him bitching and whining in terms of, can I get ahead of Lewis now? Can I get ahead of Lewis now? You're still bitter about it. It's just the goofiest thing in the world. But he's beaten Lewis in almost every race this year, in qualifying and on the track. Fair. That's absolutely fair. But then at the same time, you dilute that dominance by pulling these type of shenanigans. Is that really true, though? Because Lewis is like 20-something points ahead of him in the standings. While you guys are glamping, I'm going to look at their actual results right now, because I think Lewis is still ahead of him in the driver's standing, if I just remembered it. So he's definitely ahead of him in the driver's standing. Yeah, Lewis has him by 22 points. Yeah. Damn. I think George is having a pretty off year, but
I want to just go back to Rohit's, sandbagging comment. I myself am a proponent of the theory, whether that's fake news or not, that Mercedes is always sandbagging. I think that of all the teams on the grid, they are very strategic in how they approach not winning, if that makes sense.
No, they
Like
are,
you said,
to borrow a phrase and ideology from It's Sunny in Philadelphia, they're always negging, but they're negging themselves. They're never negging anyone else. And when you do that, whether you intentionally intend to do this or not, you're making your bar very low. So then when you do raise above the bar, you can be the first one to say, man, I guess we are decent. We do that fake humble brag thing that we love doing as millennials.
Yeah, well, like Todd, you said it. Like Lewis was obviously, letting off a little bit here and there. I don't know that we've seen that from many other drivers that are actually competitive. Like obviously the guys at the bottom of the field are just trying to not wreck the car half the time. And that's just, I wouldn't consider them in this conversation, but like, I can't even imagine thinking that's the case with Fernando Alonso ever. It's just like,
well, whether or not it is, like, he has completely changed his tune this year. Like, they could just walk up and Lance Stroll could walk up and kick him in the nuts, and he should be like, "Hey, Lawrence, your son's got a nice foot." Like, he would just he would just be like, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" I don't know what the hell they did to him, but I can't wait for things to kind of go wrong there to see Fernando. Like, even the races that have gone a little wrong, he's been super positive about.
But this is also year one of the Fernando Alonso experience. Like, he did something similar in his first year at Alpine, where he was, yay, team, I'm going to do this. I'm going to bring Esteban Ocon to relevancy. And then that second year and that third year, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, that's when we started to see old Fernando. And right now, I think this is as ideal of an opportunity for Fernando as possible. Like, there's nothing in Lance Stroll's DNA that's going to let him actively challenge Fernando Alonso other than the occasional race here or there. So why turn over that apple cart unless for some reason he is serious about winning the Constructors? That's the only way I can see this going sour. Because right now, rightfully so, Fernando only cares about Fernando, and Fernando's doing a great job.
Fair. I mean, yeah, I guess if he has no competition, then he's got no fingers to point, right? Even if they both DNF, he's just like, well, live and you learn.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
You said something earlier I wanted to respond to. Oh,
no,
this is way back. But who leaves at Ferrari? I thought of this way late, but I think the president, CEO, whatever his name is, John Elkann, I think his time's up. I think they're going even above Freddie V, and they're going to be like, all right, you haven't done shit, which I swear that guy's not Italian. He just looks like he's from Colorado or something. But I think he's going out. Sorry, that was way late, but didn't mean to bring it back to the Ferrari conversation.
No, I need somebody to point the blame to, so why not?
He's been there for Italian Harry Potter and Freddie V. And actually before that. But anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, by the way, if we are keeping the Italian Harry Potter, then Freddie V, which seems like the most generic Italian mafioso henchman name ever, needs to stick as well. Because that's what Ferrari's legacy is going to be right now, is their nicknames are more entertaining than their drivers, which is saying something.
Fair. So, going on to the race itself, Nick, you said it earlier, and I want to talk about it. Why do you think the race was good? Because it felt, I don't know, I felt conflicted because it was like, oh my God, there's another pass, and they're sending it into turns that you don't normally see passing on. But at the end of the day, once the race was over, I was just like, man, it's kind of just another Spanish Grand Prix.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of always the case, right? Like it's kind of like Monaco. And look, I would rather see, a a battle at the front than anywhere. I'd rather see two guys battling nonstop for an entire season and the rest of the field laps down, just because that's where the excitement really is, right? Like we got it in 2021, with Max and Lewis. Like nothing, like just the energy around the sport this year is even obviously different than what it was then, because you had that. It's not to say anything bad about like Max is driving insanely well, like potentially better than anybody has ever driven a Formula One car, in my opinion. And the Red Bull car itself, both cars are top notch. But I think just being able to see the drivers be a little bit more aggressive, I think that it coming off of Monaco too, where like there's not a whole lot of room to do anything. People are obviously being very safe, and Monaco's entertaining because it rained and it wasn't as safe as it should have been. But to me, like I think it's always going to shake out the way that it does, right? Like it's always going to shake out to have like the top 5 drivers be the top 5 drivers. But to see kind of people pushing it, like you said, going for passes on corners that you wouldn't expect, and that kind of stuff just makes it at least a little more entertaining to watch the midfield race for 7th place than to watch Max run in circles in front of everybody. I think that's the thing. Like I just go back to like the way your frustration with the way, the races are filmed and the TV broadcasts are done. If I was like running a broadcast, it would be damn near impossible to make the race entertaining when the guy in front is 20 plus seconds ahead at all times. Like there's only like a brief moment in the race where you're like, well, maybe Max will pit and they'll really screw up and now there'll be a race. But Red Bull's pit crew is like, 2-second pit stops every time. So it's missing that at the front, but I like seeing the aggressiveness and just the mixing it up of things in the middle, where like so many of the tracks so far, it seemed like we've seen just straight up line of cars, nobody passing anybody, because it's like the straights, everybody's on DRS on the straights and nobody can do anything.
Yeah, I mean that's typically what we get in Barcelona, right? That's been historically. They put in that, as everyone in the media, F1 media likes to call it, the Mickey Mouse chicane, to try to bunch up the cars and then give them that like run down the straight to try to get some DRS passing, and it just literally never worked. And we did get like kind of a fair amount of DRS trains in the race, but there was, I think, also it was like slightly due to the like super different tire strategies that like a lot of the teams were on. Some teams were on a 3-stop pretty early or a 2-stop pretty early, and some teams like from the beginning. I think Mercedes did that pretty early on. They committed to a 1-stop, or at least George did. I remember him having some radio about that. But then it like, I guess it just felt like a letdown, because with all of that going on and like the threat of rain, and I think some of the track was resurfaced, it just all kind of shook back to normal-ish, right? Even if you think of Mercedes all of a sudden being good, like kind of like going back to what we were saying earlier, like they're supposed to be good. They've just been either sandbagging or underperforming, whatever you want to call it.
I think
it's always going to. I think it's going to feel like that all season, regardless of how it shakes out. That's
literally
like
just down to Max
of having
being out.
Yeah, because like what would make us excited about like the next race Sunday night? When are we going to be texting each other like, I can't wait to talk about this? The only thing that's going to like really get us excited about it is either some crazy chaos where we hope it doesn't happen, or Alonso getting his first win in 10 plus years, or Lewis getting a win finally, or or Lando getting his first win. Like those are the only things that I think will change. Like I'm not saying like this race was amazing and I'm super stoked about it. I'm saying like we're pretty much tapped out at a 7 out of 10 this year.
Yes, fair.
The way Max is driving, right? So if we look at this race being 7 out of 10, like I feel like I watched it and felt good about it, and it was entertaining to me.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we also have always kind of alluded to this, especially this season, where what happens to this fan base when the results become more and more inevitable. I mean, we like comparing him to Thanos, but Max Verstappen truly is inevitable because he's always going to be there. It's on you as a fan to try to figure out, okay, what else about this sport intrigues you? And to both of my co-hosts' point, there's a lot of interesting things going on. You just need to know where to look and just hope that the Formula One direction actually knows where to look as well, because that ultimately makes that story a lot better. To answer your hypothetical question, Nick, I think for me, what would excite me is new podiums outside of the big three or the big four this year, because I guess Aston Martin is good enough now that they are in that upper echelon. So the fact that we got a random Esteban Ocon podium is exciting for me. I'm biased slightly because he's one of my favorite drivers, but that is still very intriguing. And I don't know if there will be anything on that level of a surprise, dare I say it's a surprise, for the rest of the year, because the teams that are up top have just figured it out in a way that makes them inevitable. And I keep coming back to that word, but that's what it is. And if there is joy in trying to see who gets 13th place, that's fine by me if the direction of the TV and the race tells that story well. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, I think I speak for Nick, I probably speak for Raniel over there. We're suckers for good stories. So if you can make us believe for at least 5 seconds that something is more entertaining than what it actually is, we will stupidly be Fry in that meme of "take my money, please."
I mean, I think this is also how teams get through seasons like this, right? Like, there's nobody at AlphaTauri or at Alpine that's thinking, yeah, we're going to get Mercedes this week. You know, like they have to know like who they're competing against in order for them to stay focused, in order for them to like actually not feel like the entire season is a waste, you know, because a lot of those guys, you know, they're limited to where they can go even beyond like where they're at. Right. It's not like, you know, like Pierre Gasly had a pretty good race, like, you know, not great by any means, but like, you know, he's also had his time at AlphaTauri. He's not going to make it into the Red Bull camp, like the main Red Bull seat ever. So like, again, where are you going to go from there? Kind of. Yeah.
He was already there.
Exactly. Yeah. A second time. Yeah.
Gasly, who I put on my fantasy team this weekend, was very stoked about his qualifying performance. Totally killed himself with impeding penalties, which is totally on his team. Well, I disagree with you that I think we could see, not you, Nick, I think Rope said it. We could see that one-off podium from, like, I feel like Alpine could get that sneaky podium or does have that attitude now that they're going after Mercedes. Whatever updates they brought to the car seem to have worked, and their pace has improved pretty drastically, or not drastically, but good. Both drivers have been performing pretty well. But that just leads me into the point of, like, I feel like we've been in this problem with every race, if you take 2021 out of it, every race being like peaking at a 7 out of 10, because before that it was Lewis domination, and before that it was Seb dominating, right? So it's always been about looking at the interesting battles in the midfield. I feel like the overall this year has been really good and interesting because of the developments and this new era that we're in, and the midfield battles and all there are stories there, but it's like even just witnessing Max, like literally probably having the most, what I think we're going to see as the most dominant F1 season of all time. Right. He already had that last year, like statistically, right? He had the most wins ever.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to top his own record this year.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's the like blessing and the curse of Formula One, right? Like, you know, we saw 2021, whatever side of that coin you fall on, whether you're a Lewis fan or a Max fan, you saw the best season in Formula One history, hands down. Like, there's no way that I mean, there are definitely people that like live higher on my, like, you know, in my heart, you know, like people that I've been bigger fans of at the time, but it's just undeniable how good that season was. And Formula One can't, how do you live up to that, right? Like they can't, as an organization, they can't possibly live up to that. It makes me think of like Jordan and the Bulls. Like, I don't remember who won after Jordan won his 6th ring. Like, I have
San Antonio.
like in my, is it San Antonio?
I'm trying to think. 96, 97, 98. Yeah,
maybe 99.
They were in 99.
Which, like, I mean, that team, even in a basketball sense, that team was like not super entertaining to me. Like, I'm a big Popovich fan, but they won by playing the best, like, basics of basketball. That's not how it works in Formula One. You could do the best basics, but if you have a superstar driver like Max and a superstar car down the paddock, you're nowhere close. And the Liberty Media and FIA and all them, they kind of got to figure out what that's going to look like. Cause I've got to imagine that the viewership is down on a lot of these races this year.
Glad
too,
you
right?
brought that up.
Bring it.
Oh God, what's his name? Vincenzo Landino, our boy on Twitter. He said that there's been a 39%. So the Miami Grand Prix was 39% year over year viewership drop, and Monaco was down something like in the mid 20s, 23, something like that. Year over year numbers drop. So like the 2021 peak has, it's finally, people are coming off that high. And like, I saw replies to the tweets. It's like, yeah, I have coworkers that used to ask me about F1 all the time and pulled in by Drive to Survive. And now those people haven't asked me about F1 in months.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm a huge fan of Monaco. I've got a poster on the wall somewhere around here, but like, I just love that track. I love the idea of it. I want to go someday. I'm going to watch every year regardless. It's like 24-hour Le Mans. I'm going to watch regardless. But I'm the anomaly, right? Like
They don't care about you, Nick, because they know they're always going to have you. It's people like me that are new.
Yeah, the new fan, the average fan, the normal human being that's not stupidly obsessed about this is like, wow, this is like a race where nobody ever passes and Max out qualified everybody by 63 seconds. So why am I going to watch, right? So like, that's the problem that they're having every weekend, in my opinion. I bet you people just see the results on YouTube or on social somewhere for qualifying, and then it's like, all right, well, maybe I'll tune in, maybe I won't. And, like, great for the record books, on one hand, but like kind of terrible for the sport as a whole, especially because they brought so many new people in, with Drive to Survive. I think like you had the opportunity to really hold and maintain, and it's not like they can manipulate, cars and drivers to make it more competitive in any way, but like they have done a good job of trying to mix things up with the regulations. And I think we're seeing it in the midfield, but like somehow Red Bull is still like, light years ahead of everybody. So
if you see, going back to the Monaco thing, because Sergio crashed in Q1 and they had to crane his car out of there. There was also a Williams crash, and all the photographers got all the pictures of their underfloors. I don't know if you guys saw it, but did you see the difference from the Williams underfloor to the Red Bull underfloor?
Wildly different. It looked like me building the car in my garage. And
it was crazy. Like the fact that Albon is anywhere somewhat competitive on some weekends with like, but Lego Duplo underfloor. And Red Bull has like the Lego Technique set is just crazy to me.
Thank you for teaching me how to pronounce that, by the way. I feel a lot more confident about my Lego snobbery now.
Please don't quote me on that. I don't know. Although I do have my McLaren Lego Technique up there.
Don't sweat the technique.
So,
guys, go ahead.
When does Max have the championship wrapped up by? Because I've got a prediction, which I will save for hot takes. But
ooh, I like it.
I mean, you might as well start us off.
Start us off.
Takes.
Hey, look at me creating a segue. All right, we're going to do revisit of our hot takes, the trimester, I believe we are doing.
That is true. There are 22 races. We are done with 7 of them. So I figure what time better than now to do the first trimester.
All right, we have gotten past the morning sickness. Well, Ferrari hasn't, but everyone else has.
By the way, congratulations on the sex. Yeah, so I guess we're just throwing out our new ones now, or no, let's do this. Let's go through the existing ones that we have, just kind of get a 30-second snapshot of how we're feeling. The co-host can jump in, and then ultimately we confirm which one we want to attach to the double bonus guarantee, and then also we'll give you the option of replacing or retiring one hot take for an even spicier take. How does that sound?
Cool.
Works.
Cool. Todd, do you want to start us off then?
Sure. Oh, I might go through all mine.
Yeah, okay. Just go through the first one. We'll talk about it. And then if there's one that you're like, this is my double bonus guarantee, let me know. I'll make it. And then at the end, replace one with an even hotter take, which in this case regards Max's inevitable championship coronation. Okay.
So my first one is Checo gets replaced mid-season. Danny Rick still has the same gap to Max, which isn't looking good.
You're not wrong, but you're not right either.
I mean, I still want it. I spoke it into the ether in hopes that it would happen.
I mean, after that meme from last episode, I don't think Danny Rick is ever driving a Red Bull car again.
Not if Max has anything to say.
Max is not going to let that happen.
Speaking of which, I posted that, like, shared it on my Instagram, like, hey, new episode's out. And I wrote something about, oh, you Max stans are going to love this. And Drew in our Discord replied like, ew, with the puking emoji. And I was like, dude, check the cover art. And he was like, oh my God, I didn't even see that. But yeah, so I don't think that's going to happen. Although I'm not going to replace it because I think I want it to come true still.
Okay.
It's fair.
No pushback from us. What's your next one?
Hulkenberg finally podiums. And if there was ever a race for this to happen, it was the Spanish Grand Prix because that dude was on fire over one lap. Where did he finish? Not even in the points, right?
He finished, as I stall for time, he was in 15th.
Yep. Yeah. Dude was putting in P3 lap times in qualifying and couldn't
and if that isn't the most Nico Hulkenberg thing in the world, I don't know what is.
Shit, that's true.
Yeah. I would love to see him on the podium, but I don't know. I don't know if the Haas car has enough juice.
It's super quick, or it can be super quick over one lap. They've done that a few times, or at least a couple times this year. But yeah, it's just over in race trim. It's a dog. It feels worse.
You know what Haas really needs to do? They need to get an energy drink sponsor to compete with Red Bull.
You know, that's a really rich suggestion.
No, Palm Angels isn't doing it for you?
Bang. The big Diamond Dallas Page fans.
As an American, and them being an American team, Bang is the perfect sponsor.
Bang is what artificial intelligence would name your energy drink company if you prompted it in Chat GPT.
I wish I had Chat GPT to check that. Give me an energy drink name so I can use it for sponsorship. All right. Nando or Fernando Alonso gets his first win. I actually still feel pretty good about that.
This and the next one, I think, are fairly in tune with one another.
Yeah. The next one I have is Green Bull's best of the rest. Very close. Very close to Merck, which it's kind of opposite of what I actually meant there. But I thought Merck would be P2 and they would be, and Aston would be best of the rest, as in like, P3 onward being best of the rest, but it's flipped right now. And I think unless something goes wrong and
Actually, Todd, Mercedes is in second place right now with 152 points. Aston Martin is in third with 134.
Oh, because of the last race. Yep.
Yeah. Just a timeout, quick hop back to your last comment about ChatGPT. It told me Power Surge as the name.
That's kind of
the
a
energy
tame
drink
one.
company.
Let's do better, ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I don't feel as
Give us some spice.
I've never used this AI stuff before. Can you give me like a wild energy drink name?
Oh, here, I've got a ChatGPT prompt for you. Describe Lewis Hamilton's performance under the guise of one Dr. Helmut Marko.
I don't think we can read that off.
Okay.
Well, I was trying to make your next hot take come true, which was...
Wait, no, you skipped one.
Oh, did I? Apologies.
So a wild energy drink name came back as Zapocalypse.
I see that. That's what I expect.
I can see that on the side of a Haas car, right next to the Chipotle.
Zapocalypse.
Yeah.
Now serving at Chipotle, Zapocalypse.
Yeah.
Guaranteed diarrhea. Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. You had already filled in the trimester response. So my next hot take, which is not necessarily a hot take, is more just for me to get a point at the end of the season. Dr. Evil Helmut Marko, I should say, says something racist in an Austrian newspaper, which I honestly haven't been keeping track, but I'm sure we can check the stats at the end of the year, and I'm sure he's good for a triple-double on that.
Yes.
Perfect. And then two more from you, Todd.
I don't want the next one to happen, but I still feel like it could be, given what happens this season, but Lewis retiring was my next hot take. I feel like it's, unless they get that boy at the top step of the podium, he's going to be like 39, probably still a year, maybe two away from the Merc beating the Red Bull.
Now, do you think this is like a LeBron, like, I got to think about me in the game of basketball retirement? Or is this like hard out retirement?
Oh, no, he's a drama queen. He'll probably film a decision on ESPN and just.
No, this is what I want him to do when Max wins his race in, let's say, give me a random race title. In fact, I'll look one up. When Max wins in the Dutch Grand Prix, that's when we're going to start hearing the Lewis retirement talk, just because it's a page out of the LeBron playbook. As soon as they were eliminated, he was talking about, I should retire. Like, that's what Lewis should do, ultimately.
God, I hope that happens so they can ask Max about it.
Yep. See?
And he has the most Dutch response ever to it.
All right. Oh, by the way, Todd, you did skip one. Leclerc has tripled the amount of poles than he does wins. Is that the one you're going to sacrifice, or?
Yeah, I was hoping you guys didn't notice. I was just going to read one of yours, Rohit, since you have like 7.
Hey, sir.
Yeah, that's the one I'm going to sacrifice. And I am going to replace it with that Max has the championship wrapped up one race after the summer break.
Which is, if I do my math correctly, the Dutch Grand Prix, the aforementioned, no?
God, I think.
Was that 5 races away, 6 races away?
Let's see. I'm actually checking. Netherlands, August. Nope, that's. Oh, yeah, yep. So, Belgium Grand Prix, the 30th of July. And then there's a month gap.
Yep.
There's a month gap, and then the 27th of August. Yep, I think that's. I think the Netherlands would collectively cream their pants if that happened. Right.
I'd be more of a creamsicle because of the orange, but I get your point.
Oh my God! Yes.
So true.
They would make Guinness World Record for the amount of simultaneous creations of creamsicles.
Nick, take us out of this segment, quick.
All right, I'm going to jump into mine. I only have 5. I don't know if I just wasn't coming with my best energy on this episode that we recorded this back then at the beginning of the year, but Haas will get a podium. I'm going to leave it as wishful thinking. Honestly, like K-Mag or Nico, I'm not particular, but I feel like one of them. I feel like we could have some chaos somewhere, and they could end up on the podium.
Okay, I can live with that. So we'll keep it.
Like
Todd, any thoughts to this? Because I mean, you're the one that famously said they have P3 pace during Q2.
No, I still think it could happen. I wouldn't say it's like even a lukewarm take. I'd still call it a pretty hot take. It's going to take some chaos, like a super wet Singapore race where Lance Stroll becomes like an indestructible bowling ball. Something.
He turns into Mario with the star or Bullet Bob.
Yeah, something like that.
Yes.
God, I wish they could.
Man, if we could just bring back Latifi.
Yeah.
Oh no. This is what we do, right? The race where Lance is achieving his true potential, and more importantly, Lawrence's potential for Lance. You just have that Star Wars moment of fallen Jedi, so to speak, that are just watching over him, and it's Latifi, it's Roman Grosjean, and it's Nikita Mazepin. Just in shrouds, just like, that's our boy. Way to go, Lance.
I can't believe that hasn't happened yet. That's a
It
great
would be
meme.
pretty amazing.
Did I do a good one?
Yeah. I wish I had Photoshop skills because I would try to create that right now.
No, somebody in our listening pool has those Photoshop skills. So when you guys make that, we will make that our cover art, regardless what we talk about in that particular episode. We just need it done. My brilliance needs to be captured in tangible form.
All right, next I got Fernando Alonso will get a podium. Obviously, this was not as hot of a take as I thought, but I'm going to leave this one here with a slight tweak going forward. I still think Fernando's going to get a win. I think longest gap between wins in the history of Formula One, 10 plus years. He's going to do it.
I like that. Slight tweak. We're doubling down, me and Nick.
Is that your double bonus guarantee, Nicholas?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. I think
And
so.
Todd, what was your double bonus guarantee?
Dr. Evil says, no, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, it's got to be Nando gets a win. If we're trying to score points here, it's actually, no, I'm going to say Green Bull is best of the rest because I think that's more likely to happen than there's still a chance that he gets P2s the rest of, or, he peaks.
And when you say best of the rest, you mean P3. I just want to make sure that there's no ambiguity associated with the take.
I can tweak it and say P2. I'm pretty confident that they're going to.
Perfect.
I'm jinxing Aston right now, and they're going to get P3, and Merck's pace is real, but
Fernando Alonso is going to break his wrist, and he won't be able to get back in time the way Lance Stroll was, and then we'll see the uprising of Lance Stroll.
Oh, my God. Hopefully not. All right, on a more positive note, Lando Norris is going to get his first win. I know this is a hot take, but I'm going to speak this into existence until it happens. Come on, Lando. People are going to unsubscribe from the podcast because I say this every year, every chance I can.
One of these days you're going to be right.
Right?
But, again, if there was ever a race,
broken
if there
clock.
was ever a race for him to do that in, it was the Spanish Grand Prix.
Just think of me as your broken clock.
Okay.
All right. Next up was Andretti will join F1. This is not looking good for Andretti or my hot take here.
Yeah, that's a yikes.
That's definitely a yikes. But you know what? I'm going to follow it up with an even more yikes. Lewis wins his 8th title.
You didn't say what year. That's all I'm going to say.
Good point. Good point.
So which one are you replacing, and what is your replacement hot take?
I think wow, this is tough.
You've got two very irreplaceable ones.
Oh, I think there's one very replaceable one. It's P1.
Well,
in fact,
yeah,
if
we
we're
could
looking at it from a
replace.
linear perspective.
I would say I'd have to replace the Lewis wins his 8th title. And I don't really have a hot take for that though. But
How about this? I'll go through mine and then we can come back.
I'm gonna say that Max actually, it takes Max like there's gonna be some sort of chaos after summer break, and it's gonna take him another like 2-3 races to secure the title.
So Max would then win the race in Singapore.
Yeah, we could go Singapore.
Okay. One of us will be right, Nick.
I like our odds.
Yeah. Collectively as a podcast, we're going to get this right.
Alrighty, cool.
All right,
Now
Ro.
it's my laundry list of things. So the first one I had, and now I regret them because they require a bunch of mathing, and the kids say the math isn't always mathing. In this case, it's more from a laziness perspective because I don't want to check this, but I was bold enough to say that Lando Norris will have the highest percentage of his team's points more than any other driver. And then just as a point of reference, I put out that Bottas had accounted for 90% of Alfa Romeo's points in 2022. Lando was at 77% of McLaren's points in 2022. I don't know. Like, I probably in hindsight, maybe I should change Lando Norris to Fernando Alonso because that's what it's looking, but who's to say? What do you guys think? Is there a team right now that you think is particularly lopsided?
I mean, I think you're actually onto something there, except for the fact that, there's going to be like that outlier, right? Like Williams. Where,
yeah, like somebody's going to get
Logan
5 out of
Sargent's
6.
not going to score. Yeah. So, like,
I'm actually a little shocked to learn that Piastri has 5 points to Lando's 12. Like, I don't remember him. I think I remember him getting a P10 once, which is good for a point. But I don't remember the other 4 points.
No, we can definitely check it out. But yeah, it was one of those things that I famously said none of the new drivers were going to hold their weight at all, which uses a segue into my third hot take. So I'll come back to number 2. But Pierre Gasly will score more points than all the other new drivers on the grid combined. And I'd called new stupidly as Fernando Alonso, Hulkenberg, Piastri, Sargent, De Vries. Now, if you take that Fernando Alonso piece of it, I feel fine with where I'm at. But because Fernando Alonso has decided it's 2007 again, so, yeah, that is probably the one I will be replacing because there's no way that I think this is going to happen unless Pierre Gasly turns into the new Fernando Alonso. What are you guys thinking right now? Let's use this as a quick observation on any of the new drivers or the drivers that are back on the grid. Is there anybody that's impressed you or disappointed you thus far?
I mean, I think Todd kind of nailed it, right? Like, I don't think there's anybody that's impressing in any, but Piastri's points, like, I don't remember them either. So I guess that's impressive. Because he has them.
I would say disappointing De Vries. Like, I actually had decently high hopes for him being a F2 champion, Formula E champion. Lots of experience coming into F1 as a rookie at like 28 or however old he is. Like, he's got the, young boy jitters out of his system. He showed a lot of maturity in his reserve driver role, especially in that fateful Monza race last year. But he's just been like
atrocious.
Yeah, he's been real bad in a car that's on its best day, like on the fringes of the points, and he's nowhere to be seen. He hasn't even qualified well. His practices are bad. Like, he's had a couple of little offs, crashes, whatever. I think he's taken an impeding penalty, which, granted, isn't always the driver's fault, or most of the time it's not the driver's fault, but he's just having a really bad year. So I think from a disappointing perspective, Piastri's been better, I guess. But like, he also, if we remember back to last year, was like the second coming of Christ. Like, with 2 teams fighting over him in a legal battle.
I mean, seemingly jeopardize Alpine's future, but lo and behold, I think Alpine's doing just fine without him. So maybe L plan wasn't working. That's maybe the one thing Fernando Alonso got wrong with his departure from Alpine. I will now circle back to Fernando Alonso's ex-teammate, Lewis Hamilton, and I will say that he will go a second straight year without winning a race. And right now, I feel really confident about this one, even though that makes me a bit of a hater. So apologies in that regard. But I don't know. I just don't see it this year because I just think this is Max's year. And by Max's year, I mean, I anticipate him getting no worse than second in a race. And if he does get second, I don't think it's going to be Lewis that takes first in that particular outcome.
I think it's a pretty good chance that you're correct. Although I hope you're not.
No, I want to be wrong on this one. I just am playing the percentages.
I don't know. We can do like everything else in the F1 media. Merck's back. P2, P3.
But are they back in all caps because they got the title or they got the race win?
They definitely. I actually, again, hope that this one's wrong, but I think for some reason, like we haven't had that chaos race yet, and if Merck's pace is improved, they're in contention for that one-off win. So,
assuming they're not a part of the chaos.
True. I mean,
yeah.
No, but like we've always said, Mercedes, if nothing else, does a great job of not shooting itself in the foot. So they will not be a part of any sort of chaos when the chaos does happen. Speaking of chaos, my next pick, I think, drew some active gasps from my two co-hosts, which was Red Bull will score 800 plus points in the Constructors' Championship. I think right now they are currently at 287, and we're a third of the way there. Should I bump this up to 900 and take my victory lap? What do you guys think?
how many points are on offer if they take P1, P2 for the rest of the season?
I mean, the other thing that kind of complicates this is the sprint race, because I was looking at it, and at one point before last race, they had got a possible 95% of the points that they were allowed to get, but I didn't work into account the sprint math of it. So I need to do the sprint math and calculate it. But other than that, I mean, if you look at our spreadsheet, it's all purples and greens for one Max Verstappen. And yeah, I mean, I still stand by the fact that he's going to win this race or this title sooner rather than later. I don't know if I would go as far as to say Dutch, or maybe, spoiler alert, that might be my hot take, is he wraps this up before the summer break, even though I know that's not possible.
I mean, they can get 26 points, 25 for a win, one for a
and then what's P2 get?
18 for a second.
18.
So 44
over
14 races.
I mean, it's the thing is, Checo hasn't been consistent the last few weeks,
not.
Right? Like that's the wild card there. Like I think 800 is still like
pretty hot.
It was much hotter at the beginning of the season, but it's still going to be. It's going to take a lot to like hold off everybody for the rest of the year.
Luckily for us, we're in the holding off business right now because we've got a couple more to go. So I'll go through the next one, which is up to 5 drivers will leave their current seat. And I had put down Hamilton, Perez, Yuki, Albon, Zhou. And I think of those 5 right now, it seems there might be only 2 of them leaving, because I think Yuki and Zhou have done really well in their second and third years. And Albon, I know that that's our popular pick for taking on that whatever Red Bull seat is open. I just don't think he's going to go back. So really, I think it comes down to Hamilton and Perez. But I don't know. I still feel 5 is the right number. I may not have gotten the right 5.
So I think we give Yuki too much credit. I mean, this last race, he kind of got the shaft with the penalty. I don't think he deserved the penalty. But, like, he only has 2 points this year, and it seems like he's done better. But when it comes down to it, I don't think he's performing the way the Red Bull, AlphaTauri expects their drivers to perform.
But do you see AlphaTauri pulling a Haas and getting 2 new drivers at the end of this year? Because to your point, if Yuki's not doing well, that's fine. But Nick DeVries has been a special kind of suck. And I don't want to see someone's dreams dashed within 1 calendar year. But it seems like that's the way of Nick DeVries unless something chaotic happens.
I don't think that I don't think they get rid of De Vries, but I think it's more likely that Yuki leaves, like he's booted from AlphaTauri and comes back with another team,
reserve driver for Aston Martin's Honda.
Yeah, because obviously the Honda tie is there, and I think that will ultimately play in both their favors. So
that's a little shocking to me. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I feel like, given that he's driving an absolute barge of a car, he's performed really well in races. His racecraft has improved. He's getting the best out of said barge in qualifying. You being the resident Yuki fanboy, I feel like you'd have a positive spin on that.
Is it really a barge of a car though? Because I mean,
it's been a barge of a car for multiple years now. I mean, we talked about it last year that if that car was any decent, I think the likes of Gasly and Yuki would have elevated it, and it was almost a minor miracle they got it to where it was because it just seemed bad.
And I mean, you're talking about 2 points as a team so far. Like obviously, like last year with Pierre and Yuki, like it was like stepbrothers in real life. Formula One version where like everything felt great. And honestly, I think both of them scored significantly more points throughout the season. But I just don't see them, to Rohit's point, I don't see it. I don't see them ditching both seats. I don't see them being complacent and okay with the way things have gone this season. Because obviously he might be doing well in terms of like he's not at the very bottom of the grid, but AlphaTauri's been closer to the points in the last 3 years than they are this year. So I just don't see them sitting tight with him.
No, I think that's fair. In the interest of...
Can we bet juice boxes on this?
Let's do this.
I think if anybody leaves the team, it's Nick De Vries.
Wow.
So, Nick, do I want to ask you, are you going to go on record and saying if there's somebody that leaves the team, it's Yuki?
I think it is, yeah. I mean, I think that Rohit said it best, right? It's like one season. I think you're going to give somebody more than one season. I think Yuki's had this is his third season, right? Like he's had the chance. And, regardless of how a car performs, I think teams expect more out of drivers than we do. And that's why I just think I think he'll be out. Not before the end of the season, but I think he'll be out at the end of the season. Okay. Juice boxes, burritos
is good. We'll do that. I've got 3 more, so I will go a little bit out of order. First one is there will only be 4 race winners this year: Max, Checo, Russell, and Charles. So far, I've hit 2 out of the 4, but now in hindsight, I don't know if Charles is the guy. Russell, based on my rant earlier, might not be the guy either, but who's to say? What are you guys feeling? Do you think 4 is a little too low of a number? Because as we're always quick to say, this sport likes to decide itself on chaos, but I haven't seen a bunch of chaos yet, so maybe we get a back half that's littered with it. Who do you guys think could be surprise podium winners outside of both of you saying Fernando Alonso?
Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, that's the weirdest part about that is that it's not a surprise, right? Like,
no, I think
I was trying to draw.
I think
yeah, go ahead.
Russell's a good pick still. He's in right now what's the best of the rest car, right? So we have Aston, we have Red Bull, and then Merc is in P3, I think, right?
Yep.
And they've had a pretty rough start to the year. So if this newfound pace is real, I think he's still a pretty good pick. Charles is the rough one there. So if I was going to replace one, I would say Lewis.
Perfect. Speaking of Charles, I'm going to talk about the fact that Ferrari will have the closest gap between driver points with Sainz scoring more. So that was a contradictory hot take, but sometimes that's what makes these takes even hotter than normal, is they contradict one another. I stand by it. I've always said that I think Carlos is the better driver. Yes, Charles gives you a greater possibility in terms of a ceiling, but as we were talking about, this is a floor-driven support, and that's why I think Carlos is my guy.
I mean, Sainz currently has 58 points. Leclerc currently has 42. So
that's not
it's a big gap.
I mean, the only other one that's somewhat similar in terms of team stature is Lewis and George have 22 between them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on board for this hot take. I think Sainz outscores Leclerc. He's having an absolute shit here. And
yep,
like Nick said at the beginning, like he's, I don't know, checked out mentally or broken in some way.
Now, the other one to kind of consider...
I feel like he's Danny Rick
go ahead,
at
Nick.
Renault. Sorry. I feel like he's Danny Rick at Renault or at McLaren last year. I mean, he's just mentally not there, needed a break, all that fun stuff. Feels like Leclerc this year. But I'm actually I'm most excited about your next hot take, Rohit.
Rolo Sainz, who is now frozen in a fantastic position.
Need to screenshot that one.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Let me get that for the Discord. So we can do the Rolando's last hot take for him, which is Gunther Steiner will manage Ferrari. And I feel like anything's possible at this point.
I thought when he said this at the beginning of the season, this was like the funniest thing ever. But I actually think that like there might be like even like a 30-40% chance that this happens at this point.
I was just thinking, I'm not laughing at your 30-40% chance, but like the like clown show that Ferrari already is, but in like a serious sense, like they won't be like, oh, you know, we screwed up, haha, like funny, like Haas does, like, you know, we look like wankers kind of thing. We are.
Are you guys still talking about Ferrari? Sorry about that.
We jumped into your final hot take, my favorite hot take of all the hot takes. Gunther Steiner taking over at
and
Ferrari.
Nick said that he now feels that there's a 30-40% chance of Gunther managing Ferrari.
Like, I thought this was a hilarious hot take when you first said it. And then now I feel like, okay, this makes sense.
Why not? It makes them embrace the chaos. Like, you've tried to go the adult professional route. Guess what? Your infrastructure still sucks. Embrace the chaos. And there's one person in this world that can handle it. And yes, we had mentioned earlier in the show that Ferrari went after one of the more charismatic men in the sport. Why not go after the most charismatic man on the sport? Sex personified Gunther Steiner.
The reason I don't think they'll do that, as Nick mentioned earlier, they keep to their own. And if they don't keep to their own, they, like, let's look at the times that they've been successful, at least the most recent one, the quote-unquote chamber of fear that they had with Ross Brawn and Schumacher. And, like, according to legend, like, you could hear a pin drop in that garage because nobody spoke out of turn. Everybody was scared to, like, do anything wrong. And that's why they were, like, it was like, you know, a slave shop, sweatshop, whatever. They need someone like that in that role, and that's how Ferrari's always been successful, because the DNA of their brand was like Ferrari himself saying, like, those that can't build, what was his quote? Those that worry about aerodynamics can't build engines, or something like that. Like, he was just like, he had such a like wild attitude all the time, and that's the kind of person they need in Ferrari. So Gunther, as marketable as he is, isn't the right person for Ferrari. So I still think that's like wildly hot take.
No, but then if I'm trying to adapt what I know about Formula One in the 3 years that I've started watching, and you talk about this chamber of fear, which I had never heard of prior, so now I have homework in terms of looking that up and what that means. The only manager or principal that I can think of currently on the grid that would inspire that level of fear, lack of a better term, is the other charismatic principal in Toto Wolff. Like, if that's what you're trying to get, then Toto Wolff seems to be your guy, not Christian Horner. Because Christian Horner loves to talk shit. If there's anything that man is, it's loquacious. All he will do is talk, talk, talk. We know that if that certain black turtleneck comes on, Wolff is all business. We can ridicule him because for the time being, the business never came, so to speak. There was no target on anybody, but at least he talks a big game. And I feel that's what Formula One is more often than not.
I think there's another takeaway from this conversation that's probably going to be like a separate topic we have to jump into. I actually think that I don't know how this works for every team, but my understanding is that Toto and Christian Horner both own a portion of the teams, right? They're way more committed to winning and to these teams than hiring, like Gunther Steiner is obviously is thankful to be working in Formula One and is dedicated to Haas. But in terms of just the way humans work, if you have a piece of the pie, no matter how small that piece is, you're going to put in more effort. You're going to go further. You're going to push harder. You're going to challenge yourself more, and you're going to challenge those people around you more. I think that is a huge conversation around what Formula One looks like right now, because I feel like you've got a bunch of teams that don't have that, and then you have a couple of teams that do, or a few teams that do, right? I'm throwing Aston Martin in the mix there with that conversation because, Lawrence Stroll obviously has turned that team around. As
much of a punchline as we've made him, you're right, Nick. And then the other thing that's interesting to tie this all together is the fact that Toto Wolff also owns ownership stake in Aston Martin. He's got 1%.
Has sold. He had a percentage in Williams. While also having his, Ineos shares or whatever in
his heyday.
Interesting.
Yeah. Also, net worth of $1 billion. Good job, Toto. We're definitely not in Kansas with that type of net value.
I just remembered that we're on video for this episode, and I have been leaning off camera. I'm not doing lines. I'm blowing my nose. I've been sick. Just want to clarify that.
I like to think of you doing pit stops to simulate how in tune we are with the sport. Because it's always less than 3 seconds in your back. So
just popping back on camera.
Future sponsor.
Oh, good pit stop, guys.
That was a pit stop.
Good one. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Start Formula One.
Speaking of good one. I think this is a good episode, Nick. You want to end it?
Fun.
Or anything else you want to get off your chest as fearless leader?
I don't have anything else to get off my chest. I'm just happy that we're finally doing this on video. We were promising it for a long time, so now we get to have a little more fun with it. Because usually when we're recording, we're making fun of each other, we're making each other laugh, and you guys don't really get to see that to the full extent because half the time we have our microphones on mute anyway. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it as much as I am, Gunther Steiner, team principal of Ferrari.
Listen,
I'm going to have to get a big
McLaren
flag for up here. I don't have a cool
Hey, you got room up there.
Setup like Nick does. Or Roe with the interesting background. So I got to prove my fandom. I'll be on F1.com later ordering something overpriced.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That truly is the American way.
All right, guys. Well, let them know how they can find you outside of the show.
You can find me on Twitter at Roheezy, at Instagram RohitM13. That OnlyFans Curry in the Hurry page might actually happen because once Gunter starts managing Ferrari, Ro can manage an OnlyFans. Todd, where can they find you?
Dadshoe.jpg on Instagram. That's SHUE. And same on Twitter, dadshoe_F1.
You can find me at Nick Engvall on all the platforms. More importantly, Exhaust Notes FM everywhere, exhaustnotes.fm if you want to check out some of the older episodes of the podcast. All of them are there. And most importantly, hit the first link in the description, whether you're watching this or listening. We'll have a link to our Discord. Doesn't cost anything to join. Amazing group of people. My favorite place on the internet. Thanks for watching, listening. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Creamsicles.